Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion on volunteerism. So, hello, my name is Mackenzie. I am the social media assistant at the Office of Alumni Relations. So, when you see Mason alumni pop up on your Instagram, your Twitter, or your Facebook, that's me who you're talking to. So, make sure, for those of you who are watching on our social platforms, make sure that you are following us at Mason Alumni so you don't miss out on any of our future live events. We have some great panelists today and a great discussion to get into. And so, make sure you're following us and make sure that you are engaged. So, our panelists are able to see your comments that you leave. So, if you're watching on Facebook, watching on YouTube, make sure that you feel free to ask your questions in the chat and you can participate in the discussion in that way. I want to give a quick disclaimer, I guess, for those of our viewers who are watching on Instagram. Instagram unfortunately has some limitations when it comes to live streaming. Instagram typically will cut off around the 1 hour mark, and Instagram also has some issues when it comes to transferring your comments over to the software that we're using to conduct this live stream. So if you want to be engaged in the chat and if you don't want to get the stream cut off, I'd highly recommend heading on over to our YouTube or Facebook links. Those are available in our link tree that is in our bio, or you can visit go.gmu.edu/volunteer 2024. So those are my little disclaimers. Just wanted to introduce myself. This is the face behind, the social media pages. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Kristen Taylor, who is our moderator for tonight. And she is the Vice President for Volunteerism for our Alumni Association. So go ahead and enjoy the panel.
Thank you, Mackenzie, and welcome to everyone. We are so excited, the George Mason Alumni Association, to be doing this. And to introduce myself a little bit, I am a graduate 1988 of the Schar School, back when it didn't have the name Schar School. And I am also an adjunct professor at Mason. And so it gives me great joy to be able to be involved as an alumnus with George Mason University. But before I get into that, I want to extend my appreciation to both Jen Robinson and Allison Cannon, who are with the Office of Alumni Relations. Because of their patience and their commitment to assisting us, this has been an awesome event. I would especially like to thank Mackenzie. Mackenzie has been awesome in bringing this to fruition. The professionalism shown and the support has been awesome. Last but definitely not least, one of our panelists, who is Mr. Scott Hine, who is our fearless leader. I would like to thank him so much because he allows us to shine brightly and to share broadly. And with that, the purpose of this entire event is to showcase Mason alumnus as well as current students and their efforts with volunteerism and why it's so important to them. And without further delay, I would like to introduce each one of them. I will start with Mr. Scott Hine, who is a member of the executive leadership team within the Department of Energy, Office of the Chief Financial Officer, where he is the Deputy Director of Corporate Business Systems. Scott has over 35 years of portfolio, program, and project management experience. Scott is also an adjunct professor at Mason. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce Kathy Lemon. Kathy received both her bachelor's degree in communications in 1986 and master's degree in English, professional writing and editing in 1993 from George Mason. Kathy credits her college internships for her career as a public servant with Fairfax County government. Kathy actively serves on the GMU Alumni Association Board of Directors as the senior advisor and as the alumni representative on the George Mason Naming Committee. She is also a past president of the George Mason Alumni Association, and she served from 2004 to 2006. Her other Mason involvement includes a friend of the Hilton Performing Arts Center, a supporter of the university libraries, and a longtime season ticket holder for men's basketball. Thank you for participating, Kathy.
Hi, Kristen and Scott. Thank you.
Next would be Jenny Herrera, who is the vice chair of the GMU Foundation Board of Trustees. Ms. Herrera had a scheduling conflict, but we are so looking forward to capturing why volunteerism is so important to her. And we are looking forward to sharing that at a later time. But again, she would be here, but there was a competing event that came up and we are missing her, but looking forward to her participation at a later date. Next is Dion Math. Dion is an accomplished professional and leader currently serving as a human resources senior associate at Fannie Mae. Since becoming an alumni, Dion has consistently volunteered his time to Mason, including serving as treasurer for the Black Alumni Chapter and serving 2 terms as president of the chapter, mentoring students of the Black Male Success Initiative, participating on panels, and served on President Washington's ARIE task force. Thank you for participating, Dion.
Absolutely. So glad to be here.
And last but definitely not least is Maria Cuesta. Maria is the GMU student body president. Maria is an international student from Columbia, double majoring in government and international relations and economics. She's also a member of the Honors College, and throughout her 2 years living in the US, she has been a part of many student organizations such as the Hispanic Latino Leadership Alliance, where she currently serves as the external vice president. Prior to her presidential election, she served 2 terms in the Student Senate as the chair for Diversity and Multicultural Affairs and Outreach Liaison. She is a proud Undock U ally. She is also a trainer for the First Gen Center and External Experience Partner Officer for the Honors College Connects. We are so proud of you and we welcome you, Maria. And thanks to each of you for your participation. Before we go on, just so the audience understands how this will be handled, the panelists each will answer 4 questions. And we're going to go in alphabetical order by last name. So once each panelist finishes with their response, which they only have 3 minutes, once they finish, the next panelist will be prompted to answer a question. And I will prompt you to make sure that this keeps going. If you have questions, please be sure to put them in the chat and we will answer those questions once all questions have been answered. And hopefully we'll get some good questions and be ready to answer. In the event that we do run over time, you will be provided with an email address that you can send your questions to, and I will make sure that the panelists get your questions. And with that being said, we are very excited to begin. So question number 1 is, why is volunteerism important to you? And with that, we will be starting with you, Maria.
Thank you so much. Can y'all hear me? Perfect. You know, when I think about that question, it goes back to the beauty of sharing and connecting with different people, right? It is important to volunteer because it is through that volunteerism that you understand and you're able to learn about different perspectives. So it's not like you're just gaining something back, but you're also giving back. And then for that, you're able to learn different values, such as being empathetic, being more knowledgeable, being more of a supportive person in our society. So volunteering makes you a permanent member in the society where you're able to create positive change. Even if it's something minimal, like walking around where you live and picking up the trash that you see. That it's an impactful change that you're creating in your community. So it is important to volunteer because of that, because you're one person, but you can incentivize other people to follow your step and create those bigger changes in our world.
Thank you so much, Maria. Next up, Scott, same question.
Great. Thank you. And again, good evening, everyone. I think much like Maria, it's helping others, sharing your knowledge, your information, experience, what's worked well. And I think just as important, what hasn't worked well. That's what I find helpful in the workplace and private life is perhaps not emulating what's worked well, but just making sure you understand the lessons learned from what hasn't. And I think in volunteering, you're helping others to get ahead. You're getting them further down the learning curve, and keeping that wisdom and knowledge and experience to yourself is not helpful. And so what we can do is do what we can to partner and to share with others and to help get them where they need to be sooner, based upon the knowledge and experience that we've gained along the way. And maybe just last comment, being a volunteer, it's wonderful. It's not perhaps like going to work. You're actually being thanked for just showing up and thanked for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and your guidance. And many of us that are lifelong and avid volunteers, we don't necessarily do it for the thanks, but we do it to help others, to put them in a position to go off and make an impact. And with that, back to you.
Thank you, Scott. Next, Kathy.
Thank you. I just want to echo Maria and Scott's comments about being able to give back and to being able to share your skill sets. Another thing I would add to that is that so many organizations, including especially George Mason, can't really thrive without the help of volunteers. I mean, they've got great staff, great faculty, but a lot of stuff that happens in the background, and even in the foreground, much of the time now, is due to the work of volunteers. So being able to share your skill set, being able to give back to something, and it's just a wonderful experience. And the other thing about volunteering is you get to choose, right? We go to work because we need to make a living and get a paycheck, right? But you get to choose where you put your volunteer efforts in. And that in itself can be very joyful for you and for the organization that you're supporting.
Thank you, Kathy. Next up is Dion.
Hi, y'all. Hope you can hear me. For me, it's a little bit more personal. I mean, I actually grew up around two really strong women in my life. Both of my grandmothers really instilled the value of volunteerism in me. Growing up, I watched them both work at the polls, work at our local NAACP chapter. So really, it was a commitment that I learned at a very young age. But as I heard one of the sentiments earlier, a lot of these organizations can't thrive without the work and the power of our volunteers. So really, it's a personal thing for me, but it's also understanding that we are making the mission, happen, and we're really driving the goals of the organizations that we're in.
Thank you, Dion. And again, the power of volunteerism is critical because, again, as all of you have said, you have the ability to choose whether you do it or not. And it's something that you can put your passion in, because oftentimes in our workplaces, you may be very blessed to work in a capacity of where your passion lies, but maybe there are other things that you would like to do, and maybe you aren't working in a space where your passion is. Volunteerism does give you that opportunity to work in an area of passion, and it ends up giving you oftentimes much more than you are putting in, because you come away feeling like you have made a difference. And the difference wasn't because of a paycheck, it was because of your passion. And again, thanks to each of you for addressing that question. Second question is, what are the benefits of volunteerism? And again, starting with you, Maria.
Thank you. I think that there's many benefits to volunteerism from a community base. I like to start more with the community and then for your benefit. But a community base is that we can all grow as a community. There are resources that people may have not had access to will now be available through your volunteerism. You can also build networks for them to understand how to function, how to improve. And so overall, that community or that group of people or whatever form of volunteerism that you're doing will help that area to improve. From your self experience, you're able to expand your knowledge in that area that you're volunteering in, whether that's being supporting a community that is marginalized or like I said, something with the environment, like cleaning up spaces that are with trash on the streets. You can learn more about how do you do it sustainably, how can we do it more efficiently, and how can we bring people, different people, into this volunteering experience. And so I feel like the overall benefit is just communal, right? We all benefit from volunteering. There's no one left out, and that's why it is very important to do so.
And Maria, as a student, and especially as the GMU student body president, the example that you're setting for other students and the passion that you bring to it, we applaud you and we are so incredibly proud of you. And so keep at it because you are making a difference. Thank you so much. And next, Scott, same question.
Thank you. I think for me, and it was mentioned by Kathy and others, I think that the value of it, of volunteering and getting involved and getting engaged, it's more of a passion. You get to spend your time where you want to spend it, and you have that unique internal or intrinsic value to yourself that you're helping others, students, faculty, staff, the community to achieve whatever their goals and objectives are. Um, One thing, and as Maria mentioned, you're expanding your network, and maybe that's not the intended goal, but you're there working with other volunteers or working with others that have a passion or a connection with George Mason in this case. And therefore, I think it's more of an organic relationship than say when you're at a business event or a conference or what have you. What brings you together there is the workplace, and there might be a passion about that certainly. But when we're talking about volunteering at George Mason, um, and how we can help each other, whether we're helping other alums or helping students or what have you, I think there's a stronger connection that you build, and it's more lifelong, and it's gets to once a patriot, always a patriot, and then just trying to give back to others. And I think that final comment I would make is when I thought about it earlier today, preparing for this evening, was I see volunteering as really an exponential return on that investment of your time. You go to work at an event or mentor or speak in a classroom, you're not just doing it one-on-one for an hour. You're spending time with 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 students. And just think of that. Then they can go and take that and share that knowledge and information that you've shared with others. So I find a great deal of just internal joy and passion for myself, but certainly trying to help others achieve what they want to along the way. And with that, back to you.
And with that, Scott, just observing you, for example, and the energy because I see you as the Energizer Bunny sometimes, and so I think the passion and commitment that you give to volunteering and all that you do, on top of the job that you have outside of Mason, to me, just observing it almost acts like water or fertilizer for you because it keeps you going. So I
Yeah.
applaud you as well.
Well, thank you.
And with that, next up, Kathy, same question.
Well, like Maria and Scott both said, you get a lot of joy out of it. The personal benefits can be endless, right? The more passionate you are about your volunteer work, the more you benefit from an emotional and personal standpoint, which is fantastic, obviously. Otherwise, we wouldn't be engaged as volunteers. The other thing is the organization benefits, not just from your time and effort, but for many organizations, you become, as a volunteer, an advocate for that organization. And advocacy in all forms is very important to strengthening that organization. And we do that a lot. The alumni board is completely volunteer, for example. Our chapters that we have in the Alumni Association are all volunteers. And it's important for many people, it's important for them, obviously, personally, to be able to give back. But it's very important for these organizations to succeed if they have enough volunteers, and the volunteers have to be passionate. So it's a two-way benefit, really, for you personally and for the organization that you're volunteering with.
Kathy, with your sage advice, you're so absolutely correct. Interestingly enough, there's so many organizations now that run into issues with regard to funding. And many of them can only stay alive because of volunteerism. It's also a pathway for others, for any students that may be on. Your volunteerism can also result in you obtaining a career. And so, again, it's not all about what you are giving or getting, and it may be completely unintentional, but to do it means so much more when you're committed to it because you absolutely want to do it, and not with an ulterior motive per se to actually get a job. But it can happen. And for many people, for example, their volunteerism, even after they leave their careers, they're able to actually pick up with their volunteer efforts, and it keeps them engaged versus being away from people at home and not having any interaction. So it's a great segue as well for those that have entered into retirement. It's also a wonderful segue for students as well to make sure that you maintain your involvement while you're in school, to have that healthy work-life balance. And with that, Dion, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, definitely want to echo everything that's already been said. It's honestly a two-way street. You know, not only are you helping build the community in which you're volunteering in, but it also gives you a sense of fulfillment and purpose. I know for me, one of the great benefits that I've learned from this experience and other volunteering experiences has just been some leadership skills. Honestly, you have the opportunity to connect with such a wide range and diverse group of people. It really gives you a sense of understanding of how to lead and organize and also mobilize in some instances. But I want to echo that it's definitely a two-way street, and it's a fulfillment for yourself, but it's also fulfillment of knowing that you are building a better community because of the volunteer time that you're giving back.
Absolutely, Dion, because community is so incredibly important. And with that, moving on to question number 3, why is volunteering at Mason important? And with that, again, Maria, starting with you.
Yeah, from a student perspective, it is important to volunteer because there are so many things happening in Mason. I'm gonna talk from my HALA, my Hispanic Leadership Alliance hat, instead of my student body president hat for a second. We host a lot of events that are allowed for our community, our Hispanic Alliance community, to come together to cherish our backgrounds, to understand more about our diversity within our communities, but also by spreading that culture with others. I mean, a lot of events are big. They're wide-scale events that require a lot of people and a lot of planning to go into. And so it is important for people to be willing to come into these spaces and support these spaces with their time and efforts, because that's how we make sure that we are essentially creating this type of community events. But then not taking out my hella hat and putting my student body president hat. It is important to volunteer because it is how we make sure that all of students are feeling welcome and represented. Because, for example, in student government, we have something called Maintain Mason, where every Friday at 12, we go around campus and we pick up unwanted things that we don't want in the land. For example, we find a lot of trash in places that there shouldn't be trash in the first place. And that's how we help not just our students, we don't just help our faculty and staff, but we also help our environment as a whole. So it is important to think at a larger level than just yourself, than just the place that you are, but also at a global level. So let's keep, this is a message for my students, let's keep volunteering, let's keep showing up in these spaces and don't be afraid to do so because you will feel rewarded and you will also make an impact. So yeah.
Thank you, Maria. And again, tying back to the last question and Dion's response with regard to community, showing up for your community there at Mason as a student and showing just how important it is to be invested and care about your community and to demonstrate that. Awesome. With that being said, Scott, you're up next.
Great. Thank you. I think the criticality or importance of volunteering at Mason, rather than just volunteering, is that we need to show our current students, undergraduate, graduate, again, being the largest university in the state of Virginia, growing extremely fast. We need to show our students what the pathway is to success, whether it's personally or professionally, is that we've gone through that journey before them, having alumni involved. I graduated in 1985. We didn't have that many alums back then, but those that we did have were involved. We had an Office of Alumni Relations, albeit I believe under a different name. But just having the alumni community giving back to the university itself to show our current student body what it takes to get to where the students want to be, whether it's personally or professionally, and sharing that knowledge and wisdom, whether it's, again, mentoring, speaking in a classroom, cleaning up around campus. I was looking earlier today, there's Sustain Mason or Mason Sustainability. There's great opportunities for alumni to volunteer from a sustainability standpoint, very similar to what Maria was getting to in terms of cleaning up Mason. But there's such an opportunity to get involved at Mason, regardless of what perhaps you think your time, talent, and treasure is. There's an opportunity for you. I think that the challenge is just trying to do that crosswalk from our volunteers to the opportunities, or making our alumni aware of the opportunities. But then giving back to the university that helped us all get to where we are today, showing that the grit and determination, and then sharing that with those that come after us is critically important. And with that, back to you, Kristen.
Thank you, Scott. And your response to that question, Scott, ties very nicely with Maria's response, because she, as a student right now, is already invested in that and is demonstrating that for other students. And we as alumni, partnering with Maria and other students, our investment, their investment, is of the whole cycle of the lifelong commitment that you spoke of earlier as well, to make sure that it's not just a time when I was at Mason, I did my 4 years, I'm out. But I am committed and want to come back many, many years later and stay tethered to Mason, because I cared for Mason, I cared for the environment. And with it being one of the most diverse universities in the country, and the most in Virginia, it is critically important because we go out as ambassadors. And so thank you so much, both Maria and Scott. And next, Kathy.
So, of course, I will echo the comments earlier about the importance of giving back to the university. as Scott mentioned, was so good to us because we got great education while we were there. I think what people need to also understand that another reason that's important to volunteer at Mason is, even though, as Scott mentioned, we are the largest university in the state of Virginia, when it comes to the state allocation of money to colleges and universities, Mason actually gets the smallest part of the pie. So even though we're bigger, doesn't mean that the budget that we get from the state is bigger. And therefore, the university actually relies on volunteers, such as all of us and many others, to contribute their time to supplement, to advocate, to communicate, to do everything that we need to help grow the university, not just in terms of its reputation, because it's, as Scott said, it continues to rise. The bigger we get, the bigger and better our reputation gets, and the more valuable your degree becomes, which is a phenomenal thing in itself. But those volunteer hours that we put in help advocate. For example, the alumni board. We are advocating on behalf of all alumni to the university, to Richmond, folks in Richmond, to whomever has a stakeholder in the university. That's part of what we do. And it's important for any entity in the university, be it the student body, the alumni body, the faculty staff. There are many aspects of the university life that depend on the volunteer activity within the university. It doesn't be, you don't have to volunteer directly on campus, right? It could be communicating with others via social media or whatever, or at an event that's off campus. So the nice thing about Mason volunteering is that it can happen at anywhere, any one of our campuses, on campus, off campus. But it's important for us to help sustain the growth and relationship of the university with stakeholders in the Northern Virginia area and the stakeholders in Richmond. It's I think, as part of giving back to the university, we as volunteers should help carry our message forward so that the university continues to get recognized and eventually, hopefully, get more money from Richmond.
Thank you, Kathy. And with the advocacy that you mentioned, and with our growth and how much that we get, the least amount, but the largest university, I think that the more and more alumni that are aware of this, the more that they can advocate. And if nothing more, to raise their voice, to make it known, to say something to Richmond, gotta do better. We love our school, do better. And so that point alone, to get volunteerism across the board from alumnus that may not have been back on campus in years, you can use your voice to advocate for that. And we certainly hope that they will. And with that, Dion, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, volunteering at Mason, it honestly holds a special place in my heart because Mason is honestly the place that shaped me into the professional, to the person that I am today. In my role as the president of the Black Alumni Chapter specifically, I'm passionate about improving the experiences of our students of color and their experience while on campus. I know that, a lot of our students of color who come to Mason are often first-gen students, have no idea how to navigate a college campus. And it is my hope that, Black Alumni Chapter or just alumni volunteerism, period, can be a part of alleviating some of that stress that comes with that frustration of being on campus for the first time and not really having the resources or the understanding from your family or your upbringing, to now that you're in this big city of Fairfax and you're feeling helpless. And I really hope that our volunteers are able to kind of take some of that off of their plates and know that we are a community and we are there for them. Because it's the same volunteers that impacted my experience when I was a student at Mason, that really shaped that experience.
Thank you, Dion. And that is critical. The criticality of, recognizing that not everybody comes from the same background. Something as that may be, just common knowledge. If you were raised in this area, if you're originally from this country, if you've had the same level of access, may not be the same. And so one of our alumni, in conjunction with the business school today, as a matter of fact, was a part of advocate for business students to actually sit at the table And something that, maybe you were brought up to understand, I use this fork, I use another fork. And you may think to yourself, why would you need to present that to someone? It's critical to present something like that because if you're in a business setting or you're somewhere else, you want to feel very, very comfortable in what you're doing. And so to be able to volunteer time and show students that, it's absolutely critical because, again, you don't know what people's backgrounds are. And regardless of background, the ability to have a seat at the table is critical. But once you get there, what do? And volunteers that also are in situations where I know I have done this, but you actually partner with a student. And so you act as a mentor to them so that you help them navigate, not only as a part of the school that you graduated with, but to hopefully partner with them for life so that you are a trusted mentor. And with that, thank you again, Dion. Moving on to question number 4. What are your recommendations for choosing volunteer activities? Back to you, Maria.
Um, I feel like all the other panelists have stated, there's a lot that is happening here in Mason, a lot of things. And from a student perspective, volunteer can happen through joining our student organizations because you don't get paid to be in those roles to organize the different events that are hosted by the different organizations. So participating, making sure that you're there to help them, to make sure that these organizations are running the way they're supposed to. And also at a larger level, when you have in different departments, there's different volunteer opportunities, not just here in Mason, but also in Fairfax with different local NGOs, with different organizations at the state level. So making sure that you're aware about these different opportunities and looking for them is very important. But from an alumni perspective, I'm not an alumni, but it's kind of like kind of echoing back what they have previously stated. Leading by example is important because when students see that alumni are giving back to our campus, they will do the same in the future because that creates a sense of community, that creates a sense of inclusion and of importance. So if we want to think about the future and sustainability and how we can grow as Mason, it is important for all of us to be involved. So I want to thank you, thank everyone, and thank the future volunteers for volunteering.
Thank you, Maria. And again, we thank you. And next, Scott, please. Scott?
You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'd recommend having folks contact their academic or affinity alumni chapter and or contact the Office of Alumni Relations, and we could drop that contact information in the chat. Because I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, I think unfortunately part of the barrier in terms of our 246,000 alums, not all are living, but 2/3 to 3/4 of our alums are within 50 miles of campus. And so there's a great opportunity to either bring them back to Fairfax, Manassas, Arlington, or to do it remotely, but they just don't know what's available. So what I'd recommend is for individuals to contact their academic unit in which they got their degree, or if they have an affinity, like with Dion, say Black Alumni Chapter, you could reach out to a particular alumni chapter there, or to maybe streamline that to make it easier, you could reach out to the Office of Alumni Relations, or I'll put myself out there. You can find me on LinkedIn, Scott Hine, PMP, Project Management Professional. Anyone can reach out to me or any of our panelists here at any time, and we can help navigate that and put you in touch with the right opportunity to volunteer. Everyone will have an opportunity. I'm 100% confident that we would not turn anyone away. It's just trying to find the right opportunity for the right person to align that passion. And if I may, I don't know if I'm going over my time. My light isn't turning orange or anything here yet. Maybe I think Kristen's going to give me a little bit of a buzz here. Who knows? But I started like almost 20 years ago handing out scantrons in the Johnson Center. I had no desire. I didn't 20 years ago, 17 years ago, to become president of the Alumni Association or to be involved. I didn't. I just wanted to give back to the community. I actually brought our twin daughters that were in high school up to help out, or junior high back then, who wound up getting their undergraduate and graduate degrees from George Mason and lived on campus as well. So it's just trying to find that passion, and then somewhere along the line, you get more and more involved as long as you have an appetite and a desire and a passion to help others. And here I am. I think I have one of the greatest jobs in the world. It's very humbling for me to be in the role that I have now, and I'm very thankful for it. So sorry I took all of Dion's time. Sorry about that, my friend.
And again, Scott, your efforts and as a little bit play on how your email is for S. Hine, you allow us to shine brightly and share broadly, and we're so thankful for you. Next up is actually Kathy.
So I would echo Scott's advice to contact OAR or your academic units, or even Scott, king of all volunteers right now. As Scott mentioned, there are so many, even what Marissa said, there's so many opportunities to volunteer at Mason. And what I would suggest you do if you want to become engaged is when you reach out to those units or to OAR, whomever you reach out to, is have in your mind what it is you like to do. Would it be attending an event and networking? Would it be, as Scott said, handing out scantrons? Have some idea of what volunteer effort you want to make and what your time availability is. Like, is it a one and done? That's fine. Is it, I've got a couple hours every month I can volunteer. Because that will help those units, those folks match the right opportunity for you. Because we don't obviously want to overwhelm you with something huge. Please don't think because we're on the alumni board and like Scott and I have done this for many years now, don't think that the time commitment you need to make is the same as ours. It's never, we all started smart. It's very small. So did I, Scott. I attended a communications luncheon about 30 some years ago, and here I am today, still engaged and loving every minute of it. So there's, like I said, lots of opportunities. Think of what your time availability is initially. Start small. And I guarantee you, no matter what you do, as Scott says, there is something for you to do here at the university. I guarantee you, you're going to enjoy it.
Thank you, Kathy. And next is Dion.
Yeah, I think, whether you're looking to volunteer at Mason or somewhere else, you really, at least for me, I think that the best way to find those opportunities is to find something that aligns with both your passions and your values. For me, being the Black Alumni Chapter President, advocacy, higher education, and really creating spaces for people that aren't always, looked at or overlooked, I should say. That's really my passion, and those are my values. And I also would say, consider what your skill set looks like. If you are, good at mentorship or organizing events or supporting community initiatives, really look and hone in on what your skill set is and how you can really bring your best to whatever organization or mission that you're trying to volunteer, so that you can make a real lasting impact and know that you will be fulfilled in that way, and that the organization and that mission will also be fulfilled. So I would just say, really, really trust your passions and your values, because it won't make the work seem like work at all.
Thank you, Dion. Again, I want to say thank you to each of you for your responses to the 4 questions that were posed. Now, before you drop off, Dion, there's a 5th question for you. And the reason why this 5th question, and it's posed only to Dion, is because Dion is not, sorry, Scott, sorry, Kathy, sorry, Maria, But there has been some concern from some alumni that have expressed, oh, you know what, I'd love to lead X alumni activity, but I don't live in the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area. And so Dion is an excellent example that you can not only participate, you can also lead it. So the question for Dion is, how do you handle leading the Black Alumni Chapter from your location?
Yeah, I mean, first I want to say leading the Black Alumni Chapter from Atlanta, Georgia is a team effort. I have an amazing group of volunteer leaders on our executive board who show up consistently and passionately for our work, for our events. They make it possible for us to stay connected, engaged, and effective regardless where I am. I'm lucky that a lot of them actually do live in the area, but we really embrace the power of virtual interactions. I know I connect with alum virtually, even some out here in Georgia that I know. We have a president of Georgia State, I believe, is an alum of George Mason. But whether it's through Zoom meetings or our planning sessions, we really just leverage our virtual spaces to make sure that we are creating the impact of a legacy for Black Mason alum. Being remote has given me, a unique perspective as president, but it also reminds me of how we should keep our programming and how we should also think about the way that we are reaching alum and making sure that it's accessible, whether they're in the country, whether they're out of the country, in the state of Virginia. But I mean, at the end of the day, leading from a distance, it's really given me, again, some great leadership skills, and I'm grateful for that. But again, I could not do it without my incredible team of executive board leaders, and they make it possible, and we make it possible together.
Thank you, Dion. And again, others that may be interested in doing the same thing, you can't exactly, especially in this information age, it is a little bit difficult to say, I can't participate because I don't live in the Metro DC area anymore. I know that when I was on the board for the SHAR School, for example, there was someone that was interested in participating that was on the West Coast. And so we said, not only should you, but we implore you to do it. And even if you want to take a leadership role, we encourage you to do that. Because much like Dion said, it can often take a team to do it, but it also takes, the level of commitment that in some situations people are voluntold to do things. The beauty of this is you can do it because you want to do it, because it's something heartfelt for you and you absolutely want to do it. And we encourage Mason Nation that we love to say and support that we're all together different. And our differences is what makes us such a beautiful tapestry that makes it so beautiful. And we can go out and again, be diplomats and representatives, not only at Mason, but worldwide, because we have so many people from all over the world that attend Mason. And so what better place to do it, as demonstrated by Maria, and what other things can we do that we are not addressing right now that need to happen? If you actually go to the link that has been provided for you to find out all the officially recognized chapters at Mason that are alumni chapters, if there's something there that, let's say, for example, you're like, well, I don't think that anything there is of interest, but there's something that you're very, very passionate about, consider bringing that information to us and letting us know, because it may be something that we do need to do. We also encourage you, much like I believe it was Scott that said earlier, to go to the school that you graduated with within George Mason to see if there's a need there, because mentors are greatly needed. I was a little concerned when I did it, for example, because I was like, you know what? I graduated in '88. What possible mentorship could I offer a student that's there at Mason now? Well, I had to put all that aside because it was the most amazing opportunity to mentor someone. But the most joyful thing out of it is I learned a lot from my mentee as well. So I hope that each of you will actually consider volunteering with a community within Mason, and even if it's not at Mason, because I'm being a little selfish here to say at Mason, be a volunteer where you are at. You are a representative again of Mason. So wherever you are located here in the Metro Washington, D.C. area or worldwide, your volunteer efforts are needed, because it's one thing to look at it. There's a quote that I had received from listening to something that one of my favorite authors had said, that sometimes we give so much life to a problem that it appears that what you're doing is being, almost in love with the problem versus doing something about it. And so, as opposed to just talking about a problem, if there's something that you can do, much like advocating for more funding for Mason from the state, if nothing more than write your congressman a letter. If you're outside of the state of Virginia, contact that congressman, contact the state, contact the governor. Let them know what you think, because we are Mason Nation. We are strong. Go Patriots. For those of you that are online and are interested in finding out more information, within the comment section, again, there's a link that's been provided so that you are able to look at the list and easily go to those areas. I would also encourage you, if there are questions that you have later and you weren't able to save whatever it was, or if it comes to you later after we've gone offline, please feel free to reach out, and the email is on the screen below if you have additional questions. We look forward to hearing from you, and we're so glad that you took the time out of your busy schedule, realizing that it is Thursday night, and for the big football fans out there, we know that that may have been problematic, so we applaud you for participating as well. And for those of you that look at this as a recording later on, we also thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to do so. And with that, on social media, please make sure that you follow us. And again, it's at Mason Alumni. And so make sure that you follow us on social media, turn on the reminders so that when events are happening, because there's so many events and so many things that you can get involved in, that you actually do that. And before ending, I want to give each of our panelists, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you do and for agreeing to participate and share why volunteerism is important to each of you. But before ending, if there are any ending words that you would like to end with, I will give you the opportunity at this time. And again, starting with Maria.
I just want to say thank you for providing this space to speak about the importance of volunteerism, because it is essential that we have these discussions, that we spread the different knowledge that is in this room. I also want to thank everyone who is in this panel, because you guys are doing amazing things, and we really appreciate you from giving back to our community, because that's what we need. And I just really want to say thank you.
Thank you again, Maria. Scott?
Yes, thank you to all of our panelists today. Thank you, Kristen, of course, for moderating and facilitating and coordinating, you and your committee. Thank the Office of Alumni Relations and Mackenzie and Fermina and everyone in the background. But I think one thing I would like to offer, it's perhaps not quite volunteering, maybe in a way it is, but it's giving back, and would only take a couple minutes. Come May of 2025 and every May after, we have our annual ballot for the Alumni Association to vote for our directors at large. We're trying to work on processes to improve the turnout in terms of how many folks actually vote. It's nowhere near where we want it to be, where I want it to be. Again, we have 246,000 alums. Not all are living, not all have good contact emails, but there's well over 160,000 that we have, I think, good contact information for, and we have really a fraction of a fraction that actually vote. So if there's one thing you can do, in addition to thinking about volunteering, take 5 minutes to vote when you get an email from the Office of Alumni Relations in the May timeframe. Thank you. Back to you, Kristen.
Thank you, Scott. Kathy?
Well, thank you, Kristen, for heading this up and all the effort you put into it. And also thank you, Mackenzie, and Fermina and all the staff and OAR. You're a very small team, but you do mighty things. We do appreciate that. And Maria, thank you for taking time out of your studies to join us tonight. I know you're going to be a strong volunteer once you graduate. And Dion, thank you too for joining from Atlanta. And everybody, thank you for giving up your time this evening.
Thank you, Kathy. That's an awesome segue to Dion.
Yeah, I also want to echo, a huge thank you to Kristen and everyone in the Office of Alumni Relations team. I just want to give a quick plug to the Black Alumni Chapter. If you are looking to join in any of our events or just want to see what's going on, definitely follow us on our socials, GMUBAC. I also just want to give a huge shout out to some of my executive team. I think that they're also watching tonight, so thank you for taking time out to watch, and all of the attendees that took the time out to watch this event. I think it's a really great discussion, and I hope it continues going on further.
Thank you, Dion. And playing piggyback, I want to also applaud the Volunteerism Committee, and I want to name them one by one. Chima, Fikak, Suhaila Nabulsi, Janae Phillips, who is the past volunteerism president. Thank you so much for your leadership. Janae Stukes, who is a student, and so she also participates as a student on our committee, so thanks to her as well. And thanks to all of you again for participating. We are so appreciative of all your efforts. And with that, turning it back over to Mackenzie. Thanks again.